This module is based on the work done by Richard A. Villa. Villa was a classroom teacher, turned SPED teacher, turned curriculum director, turned author and expert in the areas of differentiation and co-teaching. His book, co-authored by Jacqueline S. Thousand and Ann I. Nevin, is called A Guide to Co-Teaching: New Lessons and Strategies to Facilitate Student Learning. While co-teaching can translate many different ways, this seminar will be focused on the 4 specific approaches to co-teaching. But first, before we dive into those approaches, what is co-teaching? One thing is for sure, co-teaching involves 2 or more people working towards a common goal of educating students. Co-teaching can be a mixture of regular education teachers and special education teachers, or any different combination of professionals in a classroom. Classroom teachers, special education teachers, English language learner educators, media specialists, content specialists, paraprofessionals, academic tutors, instructional coaches, or even student teachers from a university. Co-teaching is co-planning. It is differentiating. It is multiple teachers working together collaboratively. Co-teaching is reflecting and sharing responsibility for teaching all the students, the planning, the teaching, and the evaluating. Co-teaching is being supportive. It is capitalizing on each other's strengths. Co-teaching is a fun way for students to learn from 2 or more people who may have different ways of thinking or teaching. Co-teaching is also easier said than done. Co-teaching is not just dividing up the parts or turn-taking. It is not competing against another teacher. Co-teaching is not one person preparing and the other teaching, and it is not one person teaching while another tutors individuals. Co-teaching really is like a marriage. You start out not knowing your teaching partner well and getting to know what their style is like. Then things get exciting and you really see the positive effects of co-teaching. You want to commit to the opportunities available. Then you might experience some ups and downs, but by keeping in mind why you got together in the first place, you work through any struggles there might be in order to continue having success. Some co-teaching situations are arranged and others are by choice. It's not always 50-50. You might need a counselor because there could be conflict, and there will be differences. But just like a marriage, if we struggle, our kids and students will suffer. Recently, 3 educators had a chance to debrief about their time co-teaching in a 3rd grade classroom. Listen as they share about their positive experience.
Hi, I'm Julie Barstow. I'm a special ed teacher, resource teacher at Amanda Arnold, kindergarten through 3rd grade.
I'm Kelly Sink. I teach 3rd grade at Amanda Arnold.
And I'm Vicki King, and I'm a paraeducator here at Amanda Arnold.
We decided this year to try some co-teaching in the classroom with our reading groups. It kind of came about because of wanting to get more in line with MTSS and having the whole group in with the reading class for that bottom tier. So I approached Kelly and the other teachers, and we kind of jumped in without a whole lot of instruction. I had been to a conference that had a snippet of a co-teaching trainer, and he talked about the different ways of co-teaching and how many different styles there are. We just thought we'd kind of jump in and try it, so that's kind of what we did.
In years past, we had, in 3rd grade, we have 3 3rd grade teachers, and we level our reading groups. So in the afternoons for an hour, I have more of the developing readers, and in the past, my lower students, my SPED students, were always pulled into Julie's resource room. So this was the first year that they were integrated with the other readers.
And I think that it depends on the year maybe and the levels of the students. I think this year I had a group that was able to do that. When I look at my caseload that was coming up or other caseloads in the past, I don't know if that would always work, but it'd be great to be able to find a way to make it work, because it had a lot of benefits, I think. And we also, I was able to have 2 paras in the room at times, or 1 and then a student teacher at different times as well. But that was great for being able to level into different groups even within that big group. and really could kind of focus on each kid and really work on the skills that they needed to work on in the classroom.
And I was probably a little skeptical at first, having all those kids in my classroom and all of the adults that come with that. But actually, I'm hoping I can do that again. It probably looked different depending on the day. Sometimes it might have been Julie or I teaching and the other assisting. I think it gave her a chance also to do some observations while I was teaching that helped with different parents and IEPs. And sometimes it was station teaching, where the three of us plus others would rotate kids to stations with different skills. But I felt like one of the biggest benefits was it was a community in our classroom. It felt like this was our reading group. I never felt like it was just my reading group. I really felt like this was our reading group.
And there were so many advantages for me as a special ed teacher, I think, because I don't get into the classrooms very much, and I often don't get to work with regular ed students, and then I was able to see what they were capable of doing, and really kind of opened my eyes a little bit sometimes to how low some of my kids really were, but then also to give them that advantage to be able to reach those expectations that we could lay out. And again, like Kelly said, being able to observe some of the kids in the classroom, some of the behaviors that I don't always get to see, that sometimes just the paras get to deal with, and then also get to see kind of what some of the paras are doing. And Vicki does a great job with the kids, and so even just being able to kind of learn from her was a great
I thought it brought out the strengths for each one of us. Julie and Vicki were able to help the individual learners and modify the work in a way that maybe I couldn't get to with a large group. So I thought that was a huge advantage. And just having an extra set of eyes, of course, is always good. Well, we kind of figured it out as we went, since it was our first year. That was probably the biggest challenge, was the planning part. I think we always had a big plan, but of course, as the week went along, sometimes it had to change based on how the kids were doing, what we got through, and sometimes just getting to each other. I would usually find Vicki in the lounge if I saw her at all that day, because she's in lots of different classrooms. Email worked great with Julie when something would just come up. A lot of times I'd email her over the weekend, I'm thinking about this, what do you think? And we kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think, again, like Kelly said, I think that was probably the biggest challenge, just with time. I always felt bad because I think Kelly kind of had the big picture, what are we doing? So I think I kind of waited for you to kind of say, this is kind of where we're going this week. And then I really wanted to help as much as I could. Once she had the big idea, then we'd kind of take off running, and well, we could do this, or what if I did this with this group? And when we do our groups, then it was great, because even the student teachers that were in their class, we could say, hey, we're planning this, why don't you think of something that goes along with this strategy or this?
Yeah, with the challenge of planning, quite often I would find Vicki when we were going to do stations for the week, and I would say, hey, I'm thinking about this activity with you in charge. Are you okay with that? So it would have been nice had I had the chance to get with her and plan more as a para and classroom teacher. Well, I'm hoping to do it again. I guess it depends on the population of the students and their needs that I have in my reading group. I guess just working with the special ed teacher, Julie won't be here next year, so that will be a challenge with a different special ed teacher in her place.
Yeah, I think it's, I think you have to be able to work well together. And I didn't know, because I'd had kids in Kelly's class, but we never really had this experience, and I think it developed a friendship, and I think I got to know Kelly a lot better than I did before, so I like that.
And I personally appreciated when I was teaching, when Julie would just jump in and mention something else to go along with what I was teaching, and sometimes would put it in just that right way, and I would think, oh, thank goodness, another perspective. So glad that she's here to do that. So I was very appreciative of that. Well, what prompted us to do this, I think, was to help those students who were special ed students to be a part of our reading group and to see if they could handle that. And this past year they did with success. I felt like also their self-esteem was higher, not being pulled and separated from the rest of their class. They were a part of a reading group, which all the other third graders were in, and I thought that was huge. They felt like they were part of a bigger community instead of a small group every day.
When I pulled groups out for reading, I feel like sometimes they're missing something. You know, they're missing that rich vocabulary and just the other things that come along with the unit that they do, and all the other responses from the other students they get to learn from the regular ed students in the classroom as well. Whereas when we pull them out in a small group, yes, they can make progress, but sometimes I wonder if it could be more progress. There was at least one student that I think, had we done the model where we were pulled all the time, he really would have fought that a lot harder. And the first couple days that I worked with him when we were in the groups, just the struggle with his reading and the desire to want to read, he was just very reluctant and would shut down. And man, we saw such a change with him throughout the year, and really saw a lot of growth. And I think part of that's because he got to stay with his peers and didn't feel like he was singled out all the time.
And I think it helped the kids in my reading group to see Julie, and they knew who she was. She's a special ed teacher, but perhaps if you didn't go to her resource room, you would have no idea who she was. But now they see her as a teacher in her building. I thought that was real positive as well. And for me, just feeling supported. Sometimes when you're in the classroom, you kind of feel like you're on an island all by yourself. So I really appreciated all that extra support in my classroom.
It didn't really seem like I was in there for just our kids. It felt like I was in there for everyone.
In order for co-teaching to work, partners must establish trust. They must develop and work on communication skills, anticipate conflict and handle it in a constructive way, and celebrate success together. Why co-teach during student teaching? Well, we could also ask, why co-teach when you've had 20 years of experience? Why co-teach at all? Well, because basically 2 heads are better than 1. Double the creativity, double the productivity, and double the fun. When you co-teach, you are increasing the effectiveness of your instruction. For all teachers, learning is continuous. We improve our craft daily. For student teachers, co-teaching is a way to baby step into full-blown teaching. Co-teaching is a way to build confidence in the student teacher, while at the same time learn from their mentor teacher. However, mentor teachers are constantly learning too. Many times they walk away with new knowledge and ideas brought to the lesson by their own student teacher. Likewise, most successful veteran teachers enjoy teaching with their colleagues for the same reasons, with the top reason to be as effective as possible for the students they teach.
My name is Casey Wells, and I'm a 5th grade teacher at Lincoln Elementary. So when I student taught at Lincoln, I had a couple different opportunities to co-teach. I mainly co-taught with the reading specialist there. She did they're called toolkit lessons, and they focused on different skills that the students could concentrate on while reading or doing different reading activities. So I really wanted to ease myself into full lesson teaching. I thought that co-teaching would be a good stepping stone to teaching a full lesson on my own. So I talked with my cooperating teacher, and she suggested that I co-teach with the reading specialist because they had already been doing that prior to me asking about it. And so she thought it would be a good transition for everybody, for me as well as the students, because they already saw 2 teachers up there at the same time teaching. We ended up doing it pretty much the whole semester, co-teaching those toolkit lessons. But it was really good for me to be able to work with her and learn how to teach reading through her, so that when I did start teaching reading on my own, I had a really good example to fall back on from her as well as my cooperating teacher. So to plan my reading lessons with the reading specialist, I would usually email her and set up a time, usually during my planning time, for us to get together, find out what we needed to focus on for that lesson. And so we would get together probably about 20-30 minutes and just talk about, she'd go over the curriculum or the toolkit that we would be going over, and then we'd look through it together and find out who was going to do each section. We kind of broke it up into different sections, and we'd alternate them. So maybe she would do the engagement part, and then I would do the practice, or vice versa, and we just kind of continue on from there. And so that was the main thing that we did, is we would print out the lesson and highlight who was going to do what part of it, and just make sure that we knew who was going to be saying what, so that when we did it for the kids, then we would both know what's going on. So usually most of the lessons, especially at the beginning, involved us both sitting beside each other with the kids in front of us on the floor. And so we, the first time I was kind of hesitant to chime in when she was doing her section, but she was really good at making me feel comfortable. And then I think by the second or third lesson that we co-taught, I was really comfortable with sharing, maybe giving input into what we had been doing in the classroom, whether it be reading or like social studies, something that we could apply to the reading lesson that she was co-teaching with me. That way, because she wasn't in there all the time, and so that was nice for me to be able to connect the kids with stuff that we had already done, and for that to connect back to the toolkit lesson we were doing, and as well. And then obviously her expertise in reading, when I was teaching my section, she would chime in and add certain things that she felt like needed to be said in order for the students to understand what we were doing. I think one of the biggest challenges was just knowing my place in the lesson. I definitely felt more comfortable the more lessons that I co-taught, but what was difficult for me is I never wanted to step on anyone's toes, and so the first couple lessons I would just kind of sit there and let her teach her section, and then when it was my turn, then I would teach, and I wouldn't ever really pop in and say anything, or I was mainly there, I guess, to manage the students and not think about how I could contribute to the lesson. And so that was probably my biggest challenge as far as co-teaching. I feel like I improved as time went on, just because I felt more comfortable with the reading specialist as well as the students, and so I think that was something that improved, but it's definitely challenging, and something that I would suggest for co-teaching is to make sure that you are in communication, really good communication with your co-teacher, and just know the boundaries, know what they expect of you and what you expect of them, and just be on the same page as far as that goes. So thankfully I'm back in the same school that I student taught at, so it's really convenient, but I think even if I was at a different school, I would love to be able to co-teach with especially reading specialists or special education teachers or things like that, because I feel like, especially being a new teacher, there's still a lot that I have to learn, And I think that myself, as well as I feel like a lot of other people, I learn the best by just doing. And so I feel like co-teaching is a great way to learn how to teach by also doing it. And so it's something that I see myself doing for years to come. I mean, even when I'm not a new teacher, just because I feel like there's always things that you can learn from other people. So getting to know the staff off the bat, like even that if you're in the fall, like that first week that teachers are in there before students come, or if you're a student teacher in the spring, going that Monday early, just to get started to get to know the staff, because I think that that's one of the reasons I was comfortable in asking the reading specialist to co-teach with me, because I had already talked to her and gotten to know her beforehand before I even approached her for co-teaching. So it wasn't like it was a random thing and it's like I needed something to check off my checklist. It was more so that I really genuinely wanted to learn from her, and she knew that. And so I think just getting to know the staff, reading specialist, library media specialist, the special ed teacher, other teachers in the school, I think is one of the biggest things I took away from student teaching, because you never know when you're going to need help with something or advice on something. And different people are good for different pieces of advice or different things. And so that's probably the biggest thing that I would suggest. I think that it is a great experience for not only you, but also for the students in your classrooms. They're able to benefit from multiple teachers and multiple viewpoints, and I think that is something that is really beneficial. And also for you as a new teacher and learning different styles of teaching, learning different management skills, learning different just instructional skills is a great way to enhance your own teaching skills, and you're able to pull from all those different things in order to figure out what kind of teacher you want to be.
According to Richard Villa, there are 4 types of co-teaching: supportive, parallel, complementary, and team. In the supportive approach of co-teaching, one teacher is the lead instructor and the other supports by moving around the room and helping students as needed. The co-teacher is listening to the instruction and making sure the students understand. The co-teacher can easily step in to provide assistance as needed. Student teachers often use this method in the beginning to support their cooperating teacher. They also find that their cooperating teacher can support them as they begin to take on more instructional responsibility in the classroom. In parallel co-teaching, co-teachers work with different groups of students at the same time. The teachers are responsible for teaching and monitoring the progress of groups of students. Teachers will share responsibility for the students' learning. For this type of co-teaching to be successful, detailed co-planning must take place. Teachers must know the abilities of the students and have evidence for their groupings. They will also need to have a plan in place for monitoring the students' progress. It is important for co-teachers to really get to know each other before complementary co-teaching can take place. Typically, during complementary co-teaching, the students would not know who was the lead teacher. Instruction is enhanced when one co-teacher can do something to enhance the instruction provided by the other co-teacher. This is usually achieved by paraphrasing or using visual aids. When using this approach, it is important to switch roles as content expert and complementary co-teacher. That way, both teachers are perceived as real teachers. Co-planning is essential for this method to be successful. For the team co-teaching approach, 2 or more teachers are responsible for all of the planning, teaching, and assessing. All leadership responsibilities are shared and lessons are divided in a way that allows for students to experience the strengths of each teacher. During team co-teaching, the teachers teach simultaneously. Both teachers are viewed as the main teacher. This approach requires the greatest amount of planning, trust, communication, and coordination of effort. Most co-teachers experience the other 3 approaches before achieving success in team teaching. However, it is possible to begin the co-teaching relationship by team teaching. Often, by the time team teaching is achieved, co-teachers typically are able to weave all 4 approaches into instruction.
Well, I guess what one I thought was effective was actually team teaching when we were both teaching a concept together. Modeling, I think that's really important because then we were able to model things for students, whether it be the expectations for reading or this is how it looks. I thought that was powerful.
I think in the beginning, we did a lot of the supportive.
Sure.
Because I think it's kind of part of that dance that you play with, getting used to each other and knowing kind of what your expectations are and how
Right.
comfortable, you would
Yeah.
feel with me jumping in because I
Right.
didn't want to do that right away. So I think, Vicki and myself and the other aide that was in the room, we supported a lot in the beginning, but you structured your room in a way that we didn't do that the whole time. We moved around a lot and we switched within a lot of different models, I think, of
Right.
co-teaching throughout the whole hour we were in there, so.
And for me as a classroom teacher, when I was able to step back when she was teaching, that was very nice too for me to see my kids in a different way where I'm usually the leader and they're all looking at me. I saw things that maybe I wouldn't have seen. So I think that made an impact in my teaching as well.